We were in the Congo, long after sunset, trapped between warring armies. Suddenly gunmen lined the banks of the road. They were searching us for something more precious than diamonds, a metallic ore called coltan.
Militia or soldiers or somebody was checking all the passing vehicles to see if people were taking coltan illegally out of the mining area.
Coltan, immensely valuable because from coltan comes a metal used in every mobile phone on the planet. This is the story of the hidden cost of the global boom in mobile phones. My journey began in Uganda. A team of hostage negotiators had agreed to take me into Congo. They were hoping to free some Thai workers kidnapped by one of the warring factions. As insurance, François Lumumba, the son of a former leader of Congo, was coming along. Trouble was, a rival faction controlled the airstrip we were heading for. Sure enough, its leader, Jean-Pierre Bemba, called to threaten that his troops would kill us.
C'est question de problème des otages là-bas.
Yeah, no, we have talked to Bemba. We have just talked to Bemba.
C'est la vie ou c'est François? Quel est votre problème?
Well, that really feels a bit scary now. We've just had a threat from one of the warlords and we haven't got permission to land. So there have been phone calls going back and forth.
No, he will call me. Let me get...
Yannick.
Hello?
The team phoned contacts in the Ugandan government with links to Bemba.
Okay.
Non, je suis là, allô?
Then they decided to gamble.
Don't forget us now. You pray for us now. Okay, let's go.
We left Uganda and climbed over Lake Victoria. We were heading for a country that doesn't exist except in atlases. On the ground, the Democratic Republic of Congo is the fragmented fiefdom of half a dozen warlords and their armies. In 3 years, 3 million people have died. Coltan is adding to that toll. At the airstrip, we concealed our camera. The team's phone calls had worked. Our welcome was cold but polite. They looked like customs officials, but they were security agents of the warlord Bemba. We passed their frontline positions. For our benefit, a temporary ceasefire had been agreed. Soon we arrived in the area controlled by the rival faction, the Mai Mai. They'd taken the Thai workers prisoner in a dispute over coltan. The Thai company that employed the hostages was exporting the ore, and the Mai Mai hadn't liked that.
This has been amazing. This is the first time that François Lumumba has come to this region, so these people celebrate him as a nationalist and hero.
Back in the 60s, François' father, Patrice Lumumba, was the Congo's first and only elected leader. He accused foreigners of exploiting the country's wealth. He was murdered. As we drove on, child soldiers began to line our route. With the rocketing demand for mobiles, the Mai Mai have joined the scramble for coltan mines. Now they can afford modern weapons. The 18 hostages were lucky to be alive.
Okay, Baban. So.
I knew the Mai Mai usually killed prisoners. They rip out their hearts and put their heads on stakes. The base commander told the hostages to carry back a warning to foreigners.
He was saying that they're fed up with all foreigners taking their natural resources and nothing come to the use of Congolese people, so they felt they needed to take the hostages to make this point.
François Lumumba sealed the deal to release them. After dark, the hostages were led off to freedom. But the sense of victory was short-lived. Soldiers brought news that Bemba's forces were attacking some mines held by the Mai Mai. Well, the atmosphere in the camp is actually pretty tense. The negotiators have left and the hostages have left, and we have decided to stay behind because somebody told us there is a coltan mine somewhere nearby, and we're hoping to be able to go there tomorrow. By dawn, most Mai Mai had gone to positions in the hills, but rumors of an imminent attack subsided. I asked soldiers how often are coltan mines the cause of fighting. They told me to speak to Commander Ndungo. The commander said his men were protecting a network of mines. We could even visit one.
Really? So there are even some coltan mines nearby, and it's a day's walk to get there, but you can also go with a motorcycle, and that is much quicker. Inachukua muda gani? Okay, so there is a possibility maybe for us to arrive there.
Within minutes, everything changed. Bemba's forces were attacking, and they were nearby.
Well, we've just decided to leave because these are the last cars going out of the camp. But with the contacts that we've made, we're hoping to be able to return.
But the base was overrun 12 hours later. We headed for a nearby town, Butembo. On the edge of town, I had an appointment to keep with a local journalist I'd met in the Mai Mai camp. He asked us not to use his name. Butembo was the center of the local coltan trade, he explained. And these houses had been destroyed days before in fighting between Bemba and the Mai Mai. He gave me a video. He said coltan was Congo's curse. It was clear that coltan dominated this town. Despite the fighting, hundreds of miners were in from the forests to sell to trading posts.
Bonjour. Bonjour. Ça va, Isaleo?
Bonjour.
Okay.
I met Magazin Paluku Kupika, a miner. He's 32 with a wife and 5 children. Like many others, he left farming during the coltan boom to become a miner. But it hasn't made him rich. Magazin took me to his home. When it comes to coltan, he said, it's the warlords who make the big money. Their control started at the bottom.
Okay, so there is actually a system where he has to buy some sort of identification, and to be a coltan digger, to be allowed to be a coltan digger, you buy a permit that costs $16 US. But to actually be a coltan seller, you have to obtain a permit that costs $300 US, which is obviously a lot of money for local people here. I'm on my way to see a very, very rich local businessman called Bayoli, who is said to export more coltan from Butembo than all other exporters combined. And he's got the most plush-looking, high-tech office that you could possibly find in town.
Not surprising. He's got a contract to sell coltan to Germany. Bayoli makes a fortune, but the warlords take 10% of his profits. I want the war to end, he told me. The trouble is, I'm forced to help finance it.
So,
pas 95% de mobiles, c'est 95% de production qui vient du Congo.
So there actually is a campaign in Europe that is saying there's blood on your mobile, talking about the political situation here. And I was wondering what he thinks about it, and he said, well, that's a very justified campaign, because really there is blood on a mobile in the sense that so much of the coltan exported doesn't help people here, but fuels the war.
And the global demand for mobiles may have another cost. Since the coltan boom began, Dr. Jean-Paul Mundama has noticed a significant increase in babies born with disabilities. This is Wenge Kahambu and her newborn baby, Kilembe. The doctor believes that her condition may be linked to the fact that coltan is radioactive.
Ah oui. Ça c'est de la graisse qu'on lui a mis à la peau pour que la peau... Oui. La fa aussi une macrocéphalie.
The doctor seems to think that there's a connection between the deformities and the fact that her husband is a coltan transporter who stores lots of coltan in the hut. And they use the same vessels in the house for storing their flour, for storing their foodstuff, the same vessels that they also use for coltan. And this has been going on throughout the period that she was heavily pregnant.
Nearby, we met Kasema, 2.5 years old and suffering from spina bifida.
Avec les pieds, il a aussi une macrocéphalie.
Both Kasema's parents work with coltan. It's known the condition can occur when pregnant mothers are exposed to radioactivity. Dr. Mundama told me that he hopes one day other researchers will investigate his suspicions. We called the Mai Mai commander by satellite phone. There was a coltan mine near Mangulujipa we could visit.
Trying to get a car to go to Mangulujipa has just been so unbelievably difficult. People are so worried about bandits and security along the road. But in the end, we're all feeling quite optimistic now, I think.
We shouldn't have been.
Asante. Okay, kwaheri. Asante. I think we should get out of here. I've just spoken to Ndungu, the Mai commander from the camp, and he was saying the various Mai are actually fighting each other just 14 kilometers out of Butembo, which is the way we're going. And he was saying we should just clear out, that it's actually looking pretty bad down there. That's a really close call, I think. And not the first one on this trip.
The message was clear. Where there's coltan, there's bloodshed. Back in Butembo, there'd been a coup within the Ugandan-backed faction controlling the town. Bemba, the warlord, was gone. We were invited to meet the man who'd overthrown him.
Asante sana. Bonjour.
His bodyguards were nervous.
Bonjour. Ça va bien?
Mbusa Nyamwezi, the new man, said he didn't know anything about coltan or the money that came from it. He was a politician, not a businessman. I asked him about a recent United Nations report that had reached a different conclusion.
Ça n'a rien à voir avec la vérité. Rien à voir. Vous pouvez demander même aux soldats, même à tout le monde. On sait que je ne suis pas voleur ici.
Well, I wanted to know how come that the president has been named as one of the key people who've been involved with the Ugandan military in exploiting the mineral riches of Congo. And he's saying he's not even a businessman and this whole affair has been totally exaggerated. And he himself says that he's been named in the UN report for having embezzled $10 million US, and he says that's an outright and complete lie.
I persisted. After all, the UN had called for a criminal investigation into his affairs.
Sauf que chez moi, ils vont perdre du temps parce que je n'ai aucun business.
But of course they'll lose their time, they'll waste their time if they actually start investigating him, he says.
No business, no anything.
No business, no anything, nothing to hide.
Even if this house is not mine, it's for family.
Okay. Your family?
Yes.
We made a final attempt to see a mine. A faction backed by the Rwandan government controlled some mines to the southwest of Butembo. With dusk approaching, we were still hours from the nearest safe village. It was about 8 o'clock in the evening. Patrols crisscrossed the landscape. Suddenly, soldiers lined the side of the road. We were waved down. They thought we were coltan traders. Have you paid your tax? They asked. It took a while, but we explained we were journalists. I realized the coltan mines were nearby. The next day, we met some miners who said they'd guide us to their mine. We walked for an hour.
So, yeah? This is really nice. He's actually digging steps for me because it's so steep here, so that we can get down. Okay, tuendelea. Asante sana, bwana.
And suddenly, there it was, a coltan mine.
Okay. Okay. So, off I go.
They were digging channels and using water to wash away the topsoil. Below was the coltan. They told me a group of 3 miners earns around $30 a day. But it was dangerous work. Different factions were constantly fighting to control the mine.
Sasa ni Coltan. Okay, so this is Coltan. Mawe makubwa hii. Hii ni Coltan.
Kinesha Biamana says he could make a decent living if it weren't for the war.
So he's saying there's a lot of looting and stealing going on in this area. That basically every time the mine isn't supervised or controlled by soldiers or watchmen, bandits come here and steal whatever they can lay their hands on. And he had his coltan stolen many, many times, but not just his coltan, basically any of his possessions, because the area is just so insecure, because everybody knows that there's money to be made.
They were eking out a living in the midst of a war, fueled by a mineral that people here have absolutely no use for.
I wanted to know from him if he knows what coltan is actually used for, and he says he's got absolutely no idea. He just knows that people are paying a lot of money for it. Unajua coltan inatengeneza simu. Simu ya mobile.
Telefoni.
Onyesha.
It was time to make for the border with Uganda, preferably before nightfall. Our driver explained the road carried shipments of coltan out of Congo and was a magnet for violence.
The soldiers along this road sound totally out of control, and they're waiting for passing traffic and attack people in cars or on motorbikes, make them take off their clothes, steal everything that they can lay their hands on. And 2 days ago, 2 people have actually been killed on this road.
We stopped at a checkpoint manned by soldiers still loyal to the deposed warlord Bemba. When they discovered we had no coltan, the atmosphere relaxed. There were military camps all the way to the border.
Behind me is the Ugandan-Congolese border crossing. There's absolutely no way that we could be filming this with a normal camera. It's a bit quiet today because there's been some trouble on the road. This is also the single largest exit point of coltan out of Congo.
The customs official said lorries full of coltan rolled past day and night. Their commanders and the Ugandan military were making a fortune.
So that's unbelievable, even at night when the border is actually officially closed, because they're soldiers or commanders, they can just cross daytime and nighttime as they want.
And then I left Congo. My last image, a lorry the customsmen believed was full of coltan. Truly a mineral to die for.